Hello, Dr. Joan Borysenko.
Hello there, Lilou.
Well, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation, because I think it's really, really important, especially right now, to talk about the heart, to talk about spirit, to talk about unconditional love, and all those wonderful things that you have been teaching all around the world. So first I had this question about, because I saw that you were a Harvard graduate or trained, so I was wondering, how did you become a Harvard trained to, how did you become a mystic, you know, from this background?
Okay, here people always ask that question, and in fact I was a mystic first and a scientist second. I'll give you the capsule summary of something that happened to me when I was 10 years old that changed the course of my life and set me up for my interest in science, psychology, and spirituality. I had seen a frightening movie about headhunters in the jungle, and it had just gotten into my mind. I started to dream about it, but within a couple of weeks I started to hallucinate during the daytime. So I was actually imagining that there were headhunters in our house and that they were going to kill my family and my parents and my brother. So I developed a second mental illness, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and my thought process was, if I could just wash my hands enough times, if I could just do all of my reading upside down and backwards and repeated 3 times without interruption, the headhunters would not manifest and kill my parents. And there were many more rituals. It was a state of such fear and terror. Psychiatrists weren't able to help. I wasn't able to continue in school for a while. It was the most frightening thing I can imagine. What happened was that one day I sat down and, you know, my heart was just broken. I just had to surrender. There was nothing anybody could do. So I just prayed, if there's any help, let it come. And I had an experience of, I had no context for it. Now I might call it cosmic consciousness. But whatever it was, the fear just dissipated. And I felt held by this really loving force that was calm, centered, peaceful. And in that state, I had an intuitive knowing that it was, number one, possible to recover. But secondly, I actually had a thought about how I could go about recovering. And I won't take our time to go through that at this point, but within 3 days, having used what occurred to me during that time, I recovered from the mental illness, and literally no more OCD, no more hallucinations. That was it. And I went back to school, and nobody mentioned it again for 30 years.
Wow.
But what was fascinating is this. All of us have experiences as children and as adults, and then we do with them different things. The way that this worked out for me was that I developed a tremendous interest in the brain. What goes on in the human brain that you can be psychotic one moment in a completely different reality, in an extraordinary sense of peace at another moment, in everyday reality in a third moment? Is it the brain? And I started to want to know, how does the brain work? And does consciousness come from the brain, or is brain like a television set that receives consciousness like signals from someplace else? How does it work? And then, of course, I wanted to become a psychologist because I wanted to help other kids or other adults who had problems. And mostly I wanted to know, what was that experience that I had where there was no more fear, only a sense of love? And so by the time I got to Harvard Medical School, I'd been through Bryn Mawr College. I'd been studying as much as I could about biology, psychology, the origins of consciousness, and I wanted to continue those studies at Harvard Medical School. So that was how a little girl with a mystical experience began on a scientific trajectory. And from there I had the very good fortune to work with Dr. Herbert Benson, who is really the first person to study meditation in a scientific way and bring it to medicine. And this is how my life has gone, is braiding those three strands of psychology, biology, and spirituality. And here we are.
So do you think it's for everybody that has this powerful mystical experience that there is this point of no return afterwards, and there's always this search afterwards or wanting to get back to this place?
I think so. Once you've had an experience, there's no way to go back from that. I touched another reality, and I saw that that reality was good. So whatever people might think or believe, that's one thing. But when you have an actual experience, that's something else instead. And that experience really does become a guide for your life.
So that's really a personal choice. I mean, that's a personal choice to go towards that experience, to have that experience, or it just happens to us?
I think the experience itself was a grace. I don't think there was any way that I could have created that experience myself. My own feeling about it, at least the story that I tell myself about it, is that the experience was a calling, that maybe my particular soul had a purpose, and that purpose really is to teach about love, forgiveness, gratefulness, all of those things that could help make our world a more loving place, and to teach about them in a way that's scientifically grounded and acceptable. And maybe because of that, I had the experience.
So is that what you call awakening? Is that an awakening? How do you define awakening?
I define awakening as getting beyond the ordinary dream of what's happening to us and recognizing, oh, wait a minute, there's a larger reality here. And for me, that awakening was that in the middle of fear, and this is the amazing thing, in the middle of terrible fear, there's a place where you can see the whole of it is spun from love. And I know that sounds completely outrageous when somebody is having a really difficult experience. And yet, that's what it was for me. And so, it was Einstein who was asked by a reporter, what is the most important question that a human being can ask? And Einstein replied, is the universe friendly? And this is a tremendous paradox because we live in a very unfriendly world where there is genocide, where there is hatred, and yet, at a deeper level, that was my experience, all of that is like a dream state. And beyond, deeper than the dream, is this reality of love. And from all of these experiences that we have, the good ones and the bad ones, our soul grows. And I wish there was a way to say that didn't sound so glib, because you cannot diminish the reality of human suffering.